It's a pleasure to welcome you once more to this space of IPA webinar. This is a long-term project organized by the website editorial committee, which is devoted to the discussion of central topics of psychoanalytic theory, as well as interdisciplinary contributions on related themes. The worldwide structure of IPA enhances the possibility of these interregional dialogues to share our experience around the world. As you know, the title of today's webinar is Cyberspace, Managing New Tools for Psychoanalytic Development. New tools refers here to all technological devices that support all projects based on virtual communication, as this webinar we are participating in. Today we are going to listen to the panelists discuss on IT information contribution, specifically in the field of science. IT contributions had produced a real revolution in all fields, and psychoanalysis haven't remained outside of this impact of these enormous changes. Today, virtual communications are part of our daily life in all our component societies. Some of us will remember as IPA members that fairly recently, all IPA executive long-distance meetings were conducted exclusively through phone. Now, interactive meetings are, as I said before, part of all our daily life. Another fundamental contribution I would like to mention is the organization of scientific databases. Databases to collect, catalog, and disseminate scientific literature. One example of this is FIPAL Virtual Library, FIPAL being Latin America Psychoanalytic Federation. Nowadays, FIPAL Virtual Library has more than 100,000 registers, all of them open to free access. Well, as I try to mention, much have been done on this merging of psychoanalytic developments and IT resources, but much more is expecting to be done. New horizons permanently expand and paving the way to new and fascinating developments. So we are going to hear our panelists talking about this IT revolution. But before handing over to you, I said very briefly 2 words about the webinar schedule. As always, it's going to have 2 parts. In the first part, we'll listen to the 3 panelists. Maybe they would like to make some questions or comments among them at the end. And in the second part, we are going to have an open dialogue with all of you, the attendees. At the right side of the screen, you'll find a box entitled Questions. There you have to post your questions, and you might send them along the whole course of the webinar. Well, now we are ready to begin. I introduce in the first place to Dr. Alejandra Rey. I give you a very brief outline of her scientific activities. She's graduated in psychology from the University of Buenos Aires and is affiliated member of the Argentine Psychoanalytic Society, of FIPAL, and of IPA. Alexandra is director of the Media Committee of FIPAL, chair of the Wiki Committee of the IPA, a member of the Reading and Editing Committee of the Journal of the Argentine Psychoanalytic Society, and a member of COAP, the Committee on Women and Psychoanalysis. She has a higher diploma in education and new technologies and completed a postgraduate course in management and politics in culture and communication at the Latin America Faculty of Social Science. Her works have been published in psychoanalytic publications in Argentina and Chile by Karnak Publishing House and an online journal called aperturas.org. Well, Alejandra, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ines. And I would like to thank you, the IPA, and especially the website editorial board, for this opportunity to talk among us about these new tools. I'm going to read a brief theoretical introduction to the subject, and then my colleagues will go into practical issues. I would like to start with a quotation by an Argentine psychoanalyst, David Lieberman. He says, as in recent years, modes of thinking and science have undergone enormous changes, if psychoanalysis wants to continue as an autonomous science, it must conform to the requirements of the times. Even if networks have always existed and shaped us as humans, the digital world has, in more recent years, changed our way of relating to each other significantly. Web platforms come to us, shaping the way we live, the ways we discover, make contact, communicate, learn, love, and work. Social linkages, dependent until not long ago on the limitation of a physical environment, can today be woven on a new territory, the digital space. These virtual spaces can become fertile ground for work, study, and the construction of knowledge. And here also we psychoanalysts can interact with our patients. Information and communication technologies have changed the life of individuals, organizations, and countries. They have also affected our psychoanalytic practice and the way we spread psychoanalysis, both individually and through institutions. Every technology reflects, to some extent, the social and cultural environment in which it has been created and can at times serve to question what our possibilities of interventions are. As we all know, we are living in a changing world. Thanks to globalization, we have become increasingly dependent on processes and human actions which are geographically distant. More and more people communicate and interact in virtual environments. Even we, in our psychoanalytic practice, are challenged by these new forms of interaction. Online relationships generate other kinds of links, allow collaborative work, group distance learning, and the kind of knowledge that, although not literally present, needs to be explored and researched more before being discarded or thought of only in terms of the negative effects of technologies. Networks come with the characteristic of speed, flexibility, and geographical mobility. To survive in the world of networks, we must be able to act and transform ourselves quickly. Today, relationships are often set up by digital means. All you need to do is to click. If you want to be in, you've got to be on. The image of an analyst remaining unaffected by their environment, context, and time is a difficult one to sustain these days. The IPA Congress in Boston 2015, Changing World, the Shape and Use of Psychoanalytic Tools Today, proposed the opening up to a world in transformation, considering the latest development in technology and the acquisition of tools to cope with the impact that technology and the acceleration in the pace of everyday life have on our practice. Every resource that enriches communication, facilitates a closer relationship with our patients, and helps us to achieve therapeutic goals should be explored or at least should be put up for discussion. Every resource that allows us to publicize our institution and open up a greater dialogue with the community at large should be used. The subject is already up and running, and the discussion has moved on to whether it is good or bad. We can be sure of it is that we cannot remain indifferent to it. The IPA has opened the debate. Culture is changing and the world is transforming. Psychoanalysts and institutions can take advantage of the new tools. One resource, among many others, for example, is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the most widely read encyclopedia today, and sometimes it is one of the few available sources that can be immediately accessed. One of the objectives set out by the IPA for the committee is the revision of the main existing articles in different languages on psychoanalysis on the Wikipedia website, with the aim of offering to the general public quality articles concerning psychoanalysis, which will invite them to get to know more about the discipline. With that in mind, we need to know what Wikipedia is, how it is constructed, who is behind each article, and how reliable the project is. Encyclopedias have had a long history, and much of it has involved political interference. Produced by the most powerful sectors in society of each era, its role was to communicate the knowledge of the time, indicating the ways of knowing and their limits. In just a few years, Wikipedia has changed the way that knowledge is disseminated and accessed, and this is one of the greatest changes that a society can experience. Cyberculture, according to Wikipedia, has caused a revolution in the way we access, make use of, and transmit information, generating new social and economic developments as it goes along. Coming back to our mandate, what we did. During 2017, the Wiki Committee started recruiting the full quota of members and candidates and organized our collaboration in frequent workshops alongside Wikimedia Argentina insiders to ensure that our expert knowledge is channeled correctly onto Wikipedia. We started reviewing the main Wikipedia articles on the IPA, psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, female analysts, etc., and aim to have them edited in the official languages of the IPA by the end of our mandate. This project is currently in progress, and several articles have been updated or corrected, and many more have been created. For example, we modified the IPA entry, bringing the names of the past and current IPA presidents and the component societies up to date. We, the IPA Wiki Committee and Wikimedia Argentina, also organized talks, conferences, and workshops in several IPA societies. We gave this the title of Introduction to Wikipedia, the Basics of Editing. And during the training carried out for the workshops, we entered the world of Wikipedia, finding out not only how to read the encyclopedia with a critical eye, but also trying to understand how it works, the rules involved in its working, and the importance of adding quality material. As experts in psychoanalysis, we searched for topics related to our field, and we identified strengths and weaknesses in the content. And furthermore, we agreed to keep working together so as to contribute our expertise to the most widely read encyclopedia in the world. Looking to the future, during 2018, we will continue developing workshops. The next one will be at FEDPAL Congress in September. Moreover, we would like to start a new project in collaboration with COAP, the Committee on Women and Psychoanalysis, tentatively called Pioneering Female Analysts in honor of the subjects of the project. Following on this, we would like to create new entries on Wikipedia about the women that have contributed to the development of psychoanalysis all over the world. We propose making female psychoanalysts more visible on the site, incorporating the concept of gender into the editing of the articles, improving the quality of the content of articles about women, and working towards the appointment of more female editors at Wikimedia. We believe that the lack of presence of women on the website is also a type of discrimination, and we aim to heighten awareness of the importance of creating a space dedicated specifically to our pioneering female psychoanalysts. Considering all of this, the IPA believes that Wikipedia could constitute a new space to be discovered, entered, and made use of by all psychoanalysts in an active way. We hope that the IPA will be perceived by the outside world as a less distant and more vital institution attuned to technological changes and the virtual world. We want to push out the current boundaries of psychoanalysis. We want the IPA no longer to be seen as a closed fortress only accessible to the privileged few. We want to develop activities which address the needs of the community. We want to reach out and share our experience, as we firmly believe that psychoanalysis has much to contribute to the culture in which it is situated and to the mental health of that very community. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much to you, Alejandra, for your very interesting and very precise talk. You have really enlightened us about the wide scope of IT contributions to our psychoanalytic knowledge, but also underline the social and philosophical implication of this technological revolution. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear Constanza Verón. Her presentation will be about Wikipedia. She will explain in more detail important aspects of Wikipedia. But before she begins, I would like to give you a little bit of background information about her professional activities. Constanza has a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Buenos Aires. She worked as a specialist in social science education at the Argentinian Ministry of Education, coordinated several workshops regarding university education, state and social problems at the National University of José C. Paz, Buenos Aires, and published several papers and reviews about human rights and about European history in academic magazines. Currently, she works as community manager at Wikimedia Argentina. Well, Constanza, are you ready now?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you to the organizer for giving us a space to talk about what is Wikipedia and how is built the knowledge there. So I'm gonna start my presentation. You can see now. Hi. So I work as a part of Wikimedia Argentina staff, and I will be talking about how knowledge is built in Wikipedia. We think Wikipedia as a living organism in which day by day and minute by minute, the information is constantly changing, updating, and reviewing. On a screen, you can see the main page of Wikipedia, where you can find the different languages in which the encyclopedia is written, as well as the number of articles in each of them. There are 287 Wikipedias. This means that the encyclopedia is written in 287 different languages. Currently, the Spanish Wikipedia has 1,400,000 articles 5 million registered users, while the English Wikipedia has 5 million articles and more than 33 million registered users. Each of the users contribute to improve the encyclopedia voluntarily. What unites them is a common objective, the idea that knowledge must be free and accessible to all. We are the fifth site more visited after Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Baidu, the Chinese Google, and the first on content website list. But so, how much is Wikipedia is consulted? In the graph on the screen, I have selected 2 articles to observe how many visits an article has in Spanish and in English Wikipedia. The first one is the article of the International Psychoanalytic Association in Spanish. See, if you see, you can see that between 400 and 500 monthly visits we have in Spanish Wikipedia, and the same article in English has around 900 visits per month. Articles as psychoanalysis in Spanish reach an average of 55,000 visits per month, and in English around 50,000. If we take a closer look, we can see that during June, July for the Northern Hemisphere and January, February for the Southern Hemisphere, the visits decrease substantially. These periods are consistent with summer holidays for both regions. Now, let's observe the way in which the content is built. Wikipedia has 5 fundamental pillars. First, Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. The information has to be relevant encyclopedically. It is not a dictionary, a newspaper, or a collection of sources, documents. Advertising is forbidden. Second, Wikipedia is written from a neutral point of view. We strive for articles that document and explain major point of view, given due weight with respect to their prominence in a partial tone. We avoid advocacy and we characterize information and issues rather than debate them. Third, Wikipedia is free content that anyone can use, edit, and distribute. Fourth, Wikipedia's editors should treat each other with respect and civility. This is important since the editors come from different countries, contexts, and cultures. Fifth, Wikipedia has no firm rules. Wikipedia has policies and guidelines, but they are not carved in stone. Their content and interpretation can evolve over time. The principles and spirits matter more than literal wording, and sometimes improving Wikipedia requires making exceptions. Now that we know some of its rules, I want to dwell on the importance of collaborating in the encyclopedia by adding knowledge in specific areas. The existing content in Wikipedia must be validated. At this point, it is important to understand that Wikipedia is not a primary or secondary source, but a gateway to knowledge, a first approximation. Wikipedia articles should be based on reliable published sources, making sure that all majority and significant minority views that have appeared in those sources are covered. As a source, we use from laws, decrees, academic publications to journalist notes. The latter are very important when articles are written on current issues that have not yet been studied by academics. Social networks and Wikipedia cannot be used as sources themselves. Who decides what information is appropriate? The answer is all. Each one of the users of Wikipedia can take part of the encyclopedia, contributing to improve the content as well as warning and modifying erroneous content. There are the users around the world who control the encyclopedia. It is important for us to encourage area specialists to collaborate in any way they can, adding content, editing, reviewing, creating new articles, and so on and so forth. To finish, I wanted to show some sections that you may not about, but are extremely important to understand how information is built in Wikipedia. On the screen, you can see the Wikipedia main page of psychoanalysis concept. In the first tab is the encyclopedic article. This is the place where you have access first. But if you look at the side of the article tab, you will find the second tab called Talk, where the editors discuss changes in the content on the article. This is a space in which, through different arguments, the community incorporates new information or proposes important changes in the main article. The last tab is the history, where you can find all the changes that were made in the main articles since it was written for the first time. These two spaces are fundamental to understand that the encyclopedia is based on consensus among its editors, who respectfully exchange opinions to improve one of the first sources of access to knowledge that exists today. And we go back to the beginning. Wikipedia is a living organism, constantly changing, improving, rethinking, and reflecting the debates and problems within each society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Constanza. You have been very clear in the description of Wikipedia structure, its content, and how it functions. Now, our third and final panelist, Dr. Alejandro Nagy. I'll read you a very brief summary of his interests and professional activities. After obtaining his bachelor in computer science, Alejandro completed his psychoanalytic training in Mexico. Dr. Nagy is an active explorer and promoter for the research of the psychological impact of information and communication technologies on the human psyche. His intention being to foster a culture of online emotional safety. He was held various positions at the IPA and is currently chair of the Social Media Committee. He was the former chair of communications of IPAL, professor of the China-American Psychoanalytic Alliance, and former director of the Youth Helpline at the Mexican Alliance for Internet Safety. He recently relocated his practice to Los Angeles, where he became an active member of the New Center for Psychoanalysis. Well, Alejandro, it's your turn.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you to the website editorial board committee. Thank you, Inés. So are you able to see my presentation now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just click here. Fantastic. Well, we are living amazing times. We just heard Alejandra and Constanza in terms of the Wikipedia, and this is incredible. So in regards to social media, well, social media allows young people to broadcast thoughts, feelings, truth, and non-factual information while connecting them to experiences that they didn't encounter a generation before. It also opens young people to exponential problems, and it amplifies the feelings of invisibility that can influence the perception they have on themselves. Teenagers need identity validation from friends and from strangers, and they often do this through social media. So as a new generation is coming to the online age, the internet is influencing the way their identity is developing. So how do providers and mental health professionals assess the influence of technology? Well, I will try to share some of my experience in social media and in the cyberspace to open some space for discussion, for questions, and trying to understand what is going on. So, as a start, well, the website has developed from what we used to call the Web 1. It developed into the Web 2 and the Web 3. The first one was, programs connecting to people. We were only consumers. We were only buying products, and that's it. The Web 2, people connecting to people. We have the blogs, yes. So now the people became producers, Wikipedia, etc. That started to happen, 15 years ago. And eventually we are facing the Web 3. Programs connecting to programs, the semantic web. So when you are searching in the internet, sometimes you see some advertising and you say, how do they know I am traveling? How do they know this? Because you are interacting with the internet. So everything that you do in the website or when you're traveling through Google will leave a trace. And that's how they do it. That's a semantic web. So this is another example. At the beginning, we were downloading, then uploading, and now we are creating our digital identity, and we are totally immersed in this experience. So there is a term that comes from Jacques Lacan, extimacy, and this is when the intimate becomes public. This is an invitation for you to read more about this term as an exercise, but it has been very helpful for me in terms of understanding what's going on when we disclose our internal feelings and thoughts. Look at this. This is a very interesting statistics about the use of social media among teenagers and adults in the USA. This is from 2017. So number one is Snapchat. I have an account in Snapchat. I tried to understand it, and believe me, it was very hard. Number two, Facebook. Number three, Instagram, and then comes Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, WhatsApp. Musically, it's going down, and LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn. To be honest, I had an account in all of these social media spaces to try to understand them, and of course to try to understand my own patients. Okay, always keeping an ethical boundary and always, keeping it safe in terms of the information I disclose. On a given day, Snapchat could reach, 41% of the population of young people, and this is amazing. One day, so you will see this video here. This is what a patient did to me during a session. This is a recreation. This is not the original video, but suddenly he just raised his cell phone and boop, some ears, and I look like a dog, and he sent it to his friends, and he wrote, "I snapped my shrink." So, I mean, we are discussing about the privacy of our patients, yes, but it's also about our own privacy. And from this experience, I had the opportunity to talk with my patients about intimacy, about boundaries, about sociopath traits, etc. So it was an opportunity for talking. And another teenager approached me looking for a treatment. So he was doing promotional services, I guess. So are we falling behind? This is a very interesting question. Well, more than 2 billion persons are already connected through Facebook. More than half of the human population is there, and they are active users. So, well, this is important because, as the previous panelist mentioned, well, we should embrace complexity. Yes, but keep it simple at the same time. So I will relate this. This is a big net that happened between a patient and myself. Many years ago, I participated in a radio program that was also transmitted through internet. I was talking about video games. So eventually, one mother approached me through Facebook. I had my account in Facebook, so she just looked for my name. So she contacted me and she told me about his teenager who was playing like, almost 8 hours per day inside a video game. He tried with different clinicians, it didn't work. So she heard about some of my experience with gamers, and she decided to to try it. So I talked to her and I told her, well, I know the game, so please tell your teenager that I will connect through the game. This is my name. I need his name in the game. So I had an avatar inside the game. It was an online game. When I connect during the session that we previously discussed about, the hour, he saw me and he immediately killed me. He did that 3 times. After that, he told me that, well, I was a very good fighter. I was a druid. I mean, you can choose from 4 different characters. The druid is the one who heals. He was a knight, a fighter. He was also bullied in his own school, so he became a fighter in the online space to try to balance his identity. So eventually we start writing through the chat of the game, a private chat. Now I know that I shouldn't be doing that inside the game, but it was many years ago, and the concerns about security and confidentiality, we were not talking about it. So we start working that way, and eventually we move to the telephone. From the telephone, we had the opportunity to move to Skype. Today, I wouldn't be using Skype. I would choose a different platform for doing this. And a few years later, he went into college near to the city I lived, and I had the opportunity to work with him face to face. So it was an amazing adventure, an epic adventure of a psychoanalyst going into a game, working with his patient. Social media for mental health professional needs responsibility and ethical boundaries. So we can discuss about the different social media places that you can develop. And well, from my experience, YouTube is very engaging because people can see you, they can hear you, they can engage, and they can get to know you. It's a little bit more intimate. And for myself, I believe it is a very nice space for talking about mental health. Facebook, Facebook, you can have a personal page and a business profile or discussion groups. Many psychoanalysts are are participating through Facebook. The problem comes when you are starting to post personal information. So we need to talk more about that, because all the information that you post on Facebook, unless you modify your settings, everybody's going to see it. And today, 80% of my patients, they dig into my name through the internet. I mean, they don't ask other people. They're just searching through the internet to know who I am. So that's tricky. Twitter, you can post articles, stories, images, linking. The IPA has a LinkedIn page. You can have a personal page, a business page, discussion groups, and it's very interesting for networking with other colleagues. Instagram is image focused. I try. It's very difficult for me because we need to be posting only images, and the same goes with Snapchat. It is video and image focused, so it's hard to get in. Also, we have noticed that there is a race in the use of WhatsApp and WeChat. WhatsApp is being used in the USA, in Latin America, and Europe, and WeChat that's being used in China, in Japan. So this is instant messages, and our patients, if they have our cell phone number, they probably are going to try to contact us through instant messages, and we better know how to deal with that kind of information. What do we do if we get an invitation from a patient to participate in Facebook? It is happening. So we should talk more about it, and if you have many questions later, I may be able to address them. Another issue is protecting patients' data. Well, probably in the USA, everybody knows about the HIPAA, the health insurance, for the information. So you should try to keep all information of your patient safe. And that means your computer, your cell phone, your path, everything. In Europe, this is quite new, the General Data Protection Regulation. This just happened two months ago. It's very new, and it is protecting the information of our patients. In Canada, we have another. In Latin America, Ley Federal de Protección de Datos in Mexico. So what is the privacy law in your patient's country? If you are working online with a patient, you better know the laws in your patient's country, because those are the laws that apply to your services. You also need to know the laws in your own country in regards to the safety of information. So is your voicemail secure when your patients call you? I mean, is your telephone, is your phone secured or no? Are your computer, your memory devices, smartphones, password encrypted or no? Are you taking photographs with your cell phone of the ID of the insurance of your patient? If you are doing so and you're not keeping that safe, you can have problems. Also for institutes, if they have a printer machine, is your printer machine safe? You know, all these devices have a hard drive and they save the information. So we should have a policy about that. Also, when you're sending documents through the internet with clinical information, well, my advice is, first of all, don't do it. But if you're doing it, use PDF and try to use passwords. We should be very aware of these issues, because many clinicians are having problems right now because of this. So, I mean, to end this, to end this, I leave you with these words and this image that I recently saw in London. So we shouldn't fall behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, for showing us how to take advantages of all these IT resources, but also how to keep on taking care of confidentiality of our patients and ourselves. Well, now we reached the second part of the webinar, the question and answer slot. We have received several questions. I begin to read it for you, for the panelists. I'm going to join two questions because they are very related. First of one, I'm curious about, wait a second. I'm curious about how analysts, candidates should think about our own profiles on social media like Facebook. How do we retain boundaries, and should we represent ourselves in this kind of a space in a personal way at all? Second question from Kazakhstan. How our new digital world is changing the relationship of the analyst and the patient? Well, they are addressed to you three.
Okay. Could I answer the first one in regards to personal profiles? Well, candidates, the new candidates, they probably 90% of them, they have a personal profile when they start their training as a psychoanalyst, and probably they start their Facebook profile when they were teenagers. So suddenly, all the information that they were posting when they were teenagers, it's already in the internet. So how are you going to take all that back? Well, the answer is that it is almost impossible to do it, and deleting your personal profile could be very hard. But if you are going into the mental health professional and you want to keep ethical boundaries and confidentiality, well, you have to think about this twice because your information is already there. So a proper discussion with candidates, when they enter into an institute, should be done in regards to the use of social media, ethical boundaries, confidentiality, and security. So this is an invitation for all the institutes to talk about it when they receive candidates, because they already have a profile. I mean, they're not creating them. Now we know that we have to take care of it, but it's already there. So erasing all the information is not easy. I know.
Maybe Alejandra and Constanza have something to add.
I think that Alejandro gave us a complete perspective. We have to take care of our profiles. I have a Facebook profile and I use it mainly for my professional activities. I try not to upload a lot of personal information, but all the information I have on my Facebook is information that any of my colleagues or my patients could know. Regarding to the second question, no? How is? Can you read it again, Ines?
Yes,
How
of
is
course. Wait a second. How our new digital world is changing the relationship of the analyst and the patient.
Okay, I'm going to read again my quotation by David Lieberman, no? Because he says, as in recent years, modes of thinking in science have undergone enormous changes. If psychoanalysis wants to continue as an autonomous science, it must conform to the requirements of the times. The world is changing and we are transforming. And our practice, of course, as Alejandro said, we have to take care of our boundaries and our ethical issues. But I think that we need to know new technology, and we need to know not to try to keep the pace of everyday life. So if we are working in a digital world, we need to know at least how to use technology. And personally, I use technology as a tool. I don't have the same experience that Alejandro. I never enter a video game, but my patients call me through WhatsApp, and sometimes I answer to them, and I try to bring to the session all the material and then treat them as any material in the session. So I think that the IPA knows and is trying to develop new tools. This webinar is a proof of it. We need to be near to our patients and near to the real world. So I think this is a big effort, no? And as we are involved in this process, we don't have enough distance now to know what is going to happen in the near future. But we need to study, we need to develop strategies, and we need to make inquiries.
Yeah, service.
Service.
Constanza, do you want to make any comment?
It's not my area, sorry.
Okay.
I'm not
I have a new a question for you, Constanza.
Okay.
Not sure I understood who are editors on Wikipedia, if everybody can make changes and suggestions.
Yes, the answer is yes. Everyone can be an editor. It's just simple, like click on the edit tab on the screen in the article. The idea is when you start to be an editor, you should like have in mind all these things I talked today, because the idea that the encyclopedia has some rules that to build information is the first that you had to know to edit in, because sometimes many people click in edit and put information without any idea of what they are adding and which are the rules, and that content could be erased. So if you're gonna start editing, I always say, if you are you read Wikipedia constantly and you find some mistakes or like, I don't know, just a point or a comma, you can correct. You can put edit and just correct that little mistake, and you are an editor. Just in that moment, you are one of the community members, and after that you start to take, you encourage yourself and edit a little bit more. You can add a reference. For us, the reference are very important, because through the reference we validate the information. If you are reading an article about psychoanalytic topics, for example, and there are no references in that article, the information where you can find some more information to validate that information, you can just click on edit, quote, and add a reference and make the content more reliable. An article without references is it's not reliable, exactly. So the difference between a reader and editor, it's just click on edit and start to contribute
I have to add, Constanza, when I tried to become an editor, it was so simple and so hard. Trying to edit,
yes,
because there is an editor of editors, so it's not that simple. You have to train yourself, you have to change your attitude. You just can't put everything you want there, because all the people, all the editors are taking care. It is a community. It is not because one person wants to put information in. No, that's been taking care of the community, from the community. So
Yeah.
it's
There are
amazing.
many eyes.
There are many eyes looking at you.
Protecting the information. And this is because we are one of the first sites when the people search for information, you have Wikipedia is one of the first places you find. So for us, it's really important the information that you find in the encyclopedia it has to be a quality information. So and it's a collaborative way where you can find editor from every point of the global. So it's
organic.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes we can find on Wikipedia some articles an advertisement saying this article needs references.
Yes.
No?
For
and you have
time.
Yes, for 30 days, at least in Argentina for 30 days. And you need to find the references. If you don't have them, you can't defend your point of view and it will be erased.
Yeah.
But Constanza shows that you have a place where you can discuss your opinions, trying to get to an agreement.
Yeah.
If you
Yes,
if you can't, there is a librarian, no, who could moderate this space.
Yeah, and that's the reason you cannot use social media as a reference.
Yeah, because it's not neutral. Social medias are subjective.
Different.
You have to put a neutral point of view. Because of that, we need to quality sources to validate the knowledge.
Well, shall we pass to other question?
Okay.
This one is about confidentiality. They ask if Skype is a secure platform, or if it's not, what platform do you recommend?
Okay. Well, Skype is not a secured platform. And I have seen, I mean, even for the last month, I have seen people trying to give supervisions through Skype. No, Skype is not HIPAA compliant, and it won't be compliant with all those new regulations in Europe and in China. No. So myself, this is me. Okay, I use Zoom. Zoom as Zoom. Okay, that's what I use. And but you can use NetMeeting as well. There are many different providers. You should only need to search: is it HIPAA HIPAA compliant or not? So it is important because if it when it is compliant, it needs to be encrypted. The information is encrypted, so nobody could take this information, a third party, and listen or read about it. Also, well, FaceTime, it is, so far, I know it is encrypted and it is HIPAA compliant, as well as WhatsApp. WhatsApp became HIPAA compliant, so the messages through WhatsApp are, HIPAA compliant. But your cell phone probably is not.
It's not.
It's not. So that's why you need to be very careful. So I don't recommend Skype.
Alejandro, please explain this point a little more, because there is a special question about what you are speaking about when you speak about encrypt our phones and computer.
Okay. Encryptation means that you are sending a block of information, and this information is going to be modified by the system, okay, by the computer. It's going to be encrypted with a code, so nobody could know what are you talking about or writing about. You need a special formula and logarithm to unencrypt the information. So that's the meaning of encryptation. Okay, it is just hiding the information from others. Parties. Yes.
Yes. Another questions about confidentiality and security. What kind of security considerations we need to consider in Skype-based? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, I don't know what was wrong. With my screen.
well, we just mentioned about Skype, and that my advice is to change it. And also, if you are working with your patients, I always use my office. I always use the same setting. My patients, if it is, if I'm using video, they're always going to see the same. An ethical consideration is that you're not going to connect in a restaurant. You're not going to connect maybe in a place which is not appropriate with noise. That's why I'm using headphones also when I am with some patients, because the sound, I don't want the sound to be spreading away. And I ask the same for my patients. They need to keep their information safe, and we need to talk about where are they going to connect. Are they going to connect in their own house, at their office? So this is important. This is part of the setting. So, I mean, we are not moving our own office from a place to a place, but maybe a patient needs to be moving because of his job. So when a patient of mine, it happened before, I was waiting for my patient, and suddenly I saw him, but he was driving. So that's totally unsecured. And I told him, we cannot have this session. This is about the security of my patient. And I said, no. So, we need to talk more about this. I won't be able to answer all these questions today because we're talking about some other issues. But yes, confidentiality and security, setting, it's important.
Yes, I think this is maybe the topic for another webinar.
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
Treatments, online treatments.
There are appearing many questions about treatment online. It's not the central point of this webinar, but I read it one for you. Have you studied the changes in transference and countertransference during your cyber therapy? This is a wonderful presentation of tools. Please consider about future presenting more about the actual experience of conducting analysis over the internet. I have recently started working with a Chinese national, and I am noticing ways in which it is the same and different to face-to-face work. I'm in the United States. Questions insisted about this topic, central and important topic of online analysis.
I mentioned before a paper by Alessandra Lema on the body on the cyberspace. I can recommend that paper. It is available, I think, on the IPA website or maybe on one of their publications. And there she explained how she managed the treatment with a patient. She was talking to him face to face, but she explored the way this patient connected with another one in the cyberspace and how could he manage to build an image of his body. And as I told you previously, I think that we need to explore more. We have to take care, of course, of transference and countertransference, but I put my emphasis of using these new tools just as tools.
I agree with Alejandra. We both, as many of the people here listening to us, had experiences with patients through online technology or through telephone. Transference and counter-transference is always there. So as analysts, we are always exploring the unconscious. We are always making dream interpretation. So that's there all the time. And as Alejandra said, and I agree, this is a new tool. Yes. And it all started, I mentioned this before the webinar, but the astronauts, when they were in space, sometimes they needed somebody to talk from Earth. And they had specialists talking to them, for their depression, on some other issues. So we are feeling this as new, but it's not that new. It's just more spread than before.
We have to take serious account of all these questions we are receiving about online therapy. It's a topic that has received special attention in last IPA congresses, but
Yes.
now we have to take advantage of this space of the webinars to discuss it around the world and share our experiences. Yes. Well, another question. I practice in Mexico. I have a distinct impression that nowadays it is becoming impossible to retain the anonymity we took for granted 25 years ago. Do the panelists have the same opinion?
Yes. Yes. It's very
all
hard.
our information is
there.
Yes. But I mean, if a patient suddenly sees a Facebook post or an image of you giving a conference, well, and you canceled the sessions of your patients for a week and he sees that you are traveling, well, he knows that. But I remember a case in which an analyst posted some information and he reported to the patient a different information and the patient knew about it and he said, you were not working, you were on vacations, I saw you on the. So it raised a problem about being coherent with yourself and with your posts, being transparent also. So if a patient reads something about you, he's going to bring it to the session where you can talk about it and you can start working with that information. The problem comes when the information is dissociated from your office, from your work. So that could become harmful for the treatment. We cannot dissociate the digital world and the face-to-face experience.
I remember the words of Sandor Ferenczi.
Yeah.
He said that we need to be honest with our patients and try to let them know, the clear way our feelings, because if you don't do that, the patient is going to know, and we can re-traumatize them, not telling the truth.
Yeah, that's relational psychoanalysis probably has a lot to share about this.
I read to you another question that has to do also with confidentiality, but related to editing papers. How can we protect papers with clinical material when many scientific publications upload them on their own site? Some of my analyst colleagues say, no, this is another question. So they are asking you about scientific publications online. That is a very important problem that we all as analysts are considering, yes.
Well, I'm not sure if the question is in regard to copyright or clinical material, because we have both problems. If you post information, you lose the
Yes.
property of information.
Yes.
Those are very different aspects. I
Yes.
understand that here the question is about clinical material confidentiality. And this is the very important point, because we need to interchange our experiences, but we are really limited by this problem.
As far as I knew regarding clinical material, in my experience as director of communication of FIPAL, when you send a paper to a Congress, you need to agree, you need to sign and give an authority, your agreement. Yes, your agreement to that paper to be published, and you agree and you sign and you said if you publish clinical material that you have been allowed by your patient to publish that. We don't publish without your agreement, and we don't video type clinical material.
Yeah. Yes. Also, during conferences, it has happened before that people just arrive to a conference and they just take off their cell phone and start recording the conference. So we must be very, very careful about this and tell all the attendees that that shouldn't be done, because sometimes they just post information or you just take that clinical information with them. So setting boundaries, being very careful about this. Clinical information is, well, it is the core of what we do, and we should take care of it.
Another question that also refers to treatments online: how emotional links develop, in which theoretical framework would they put them?
I don't understand the question.
Let me see if there is some addenda. It's not clearly written, but the idea is how do emotional links develop in these different settings, in treatments at distance.
From my experience, it's very hard. You need to put, in my experience, I'm putting even more attention sometimes, because I have to be highly concentrated on hearing, especially on hearing, trying to find, little movements in the speech, because I am unable to breathe my patient, to feel the air movement in my office. All those senses are not there anymore. So some other senses are working a little bit more, especially hearing. Some of these online treatments, and one of the questions was in regard to a person who has a patient in China. Well, yes, it's happening. I have the same experience, and some other probably do. Because psychoanalysis is spreading through the world. It's getting to some countries that they don't know, they don't even have psychoanalysts in their own country. So that's why they are, looking for a psychoanalyst to work online. So being able to hear even, the difference on language, because sometimes we're using a second language to communicate with a patient who has a mother language like Chinese, or myself Spanish, and we're using English. So it is a very amazing experience, because we are sharing sometimes even more from our own injuries, the therapist injury.
Yes,
Yeah.
on online treatments started, as far as I read, in the 60s and 70s, but through telephone. So you have only the voice and not the image. And now you can have both. But I think that feelings and emotions can be transmitted in any way.
Yeah. And who knows what is going to happen in the next 20 years? Because we are developing new tools. Technology develops faster than the human ability to comply with it, to adapt to it. It goes faster.
And you showed a picture of the womb and the baby inside with the tablet, the one we saw in London. And this is the world we are living. No?
Yes.
Today, I read an article in an Argentine newspaper saying that Estonia is a country 100% connected online, and you can do everything online. Since you are born at the hospital, the doctors gave you an identity, and then the parents put the name of the baby online. You don't need to go to an office. So we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Here is a very specific question. I am in the United States. Do you bill differently for telemedicine, phone, video sessions?
Do you?
If you bill differently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. How do we bill our patients if we are in different countries? Well, different countries means different economies. Yes, and that stands for today. So if you're in the US, probably in the USA, probably the income in the USA, it's a little bit more than in some other countries. So we all need to talk about that with our patients. It's very important. And of course, when they pay, how do they pay you? Credit cards, PayPal, all sort of different tools are being used. Myself, I use PayPal. Yes, well, you're going to lose like 3.4%. Yes, and the patient should be aware of it.
5%.
Oh, that's in Argentina, yes. And it changes. But at the same time, the economy is also changing. For a moment, I even thought I'm not doing it, but I thought I'm going to charge Bitcoin. No, I'm not doing it. But it passed through my mind. So economy is changing as well. So in the next few years, probably we're going to see many changes in the way that the economy is working. So talking with the patient, being in touch with him, make it real, because for the patient it could be a huge effort to pay that session, and maybe for the analyst it's not that much in terms of the economy of your own country. So it should be addressed. Very important, because it could risk the relationship with your patient.
We receive another question insisting in the topics of the change in our setting. Can we have a comment on the use of messages and WhatsApp messages and how they may pose a violation on the frame?
A violation on the frame. Maybe Alejandra, you mentioned that you had many WhatsApp patients.
No, not WhatsApp patients. They send me messages.
Yeah, I know.
Send me messages. Always that depends on the relationship with each patient. Not all of them send me a lot of messages, but sometimes, at least in Argentina, we have, well, I think in Mexico it's the same. Every day we have demonstrations or traffic jams, and every day one patient can send me a message saying that he's late. That kind of messages. Those are the most important WhatsApp messages I receive. Not to talk to private things on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But we sometimes we change our session through WhatsApp.
Can I show a WhatsApp conversation I have?
Yes.
I have an image of a WhatsApp conversation.
Mm.
I can show it to you at this moment. It's very interesting. Okay, am I? Just
You
let me
have
know.
to send your.
Yeah. So yeah, well, it's not there. I have it in my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay, just show my screen. I will go there. Okay, and now click here. Okay. Hey, doc, I can't make it today. Call you back to reschedule. Dear patient, thank you for letting me know. I'll see you next Friday at 10 as agreed. I will be working. I called you back. Thank you. We agreed that your sessions are Tuesday and Friday. There is no need to reschedule. I have financial problems. I called you back. Thank you for your support. So that was a bye-bye. A resistance, totally. And sometimes, yes. So that's the reason I talk with my patients that I am not accepting this kind of information through social media, Messenger, WhatsApp. No, I set those rules before. I asked them, are you participating in social media or blah, blah, blah? And so they tell me, and I talk about it, that, I mean, I'm not accepting this kind of messages. I mean, they may try, of course, but I talk it before. Okay, so that's the only I have. And in your case, Maria Alejandra, as me, I do get sometimes cancellations. I'm getting late. Yes, I get that information, but I usually talk about it if it is important. I talk about the message with my patient.
Yes, of course. And sometimes what it is interesting is to know many patients make comments on their WhatsApps, no? Talking with their boyfriends or girlfriends or some family members. And sometimes it is interesting what appears in that conversation. So I take it as a material, as part of the session.
It is.
Another question. I would like to ask about the formation of candidates for IPA in the developing countries, where fees for formation is perpetuating the feeling that psychoanalysis is for the privileged. Do you think that virtuality would be a more accessible solution?
Well, I'm not sure if it is privilege, because every psychoanalyst could open the door to the with people underserved. So that's a decision that the psychoanalyst takes. And also in terms of training, there are many options for training analysts, as long as they talk to the institute, to the deans, and to supervisors, their own analysts. I believe that the most important part is communication, real communication.
Okay. I insist in what I commented before. We have to pay real attention to this demand of an open discussion about online treatments. There are special conditions which changes we find, which are our experience. It has to be a promise to our attendees to make a space for this as soon as possible. Yes. Well, we have reached now the end. I don't know if you want to add something, any comment. Meanwhile, I want also to announce our next webinar that will be from the IPA Story of Psychoanalysis Committee on July the 22nd. And the panelists will be Louis Rose, Professor of Modern European History, Anton Kries, past Director of Sigmund Freud Archive, and Margaret McAleer, the Senior Archives Specialist at the Library of Congress. Well, thank you very much for your participation that have made this webinar, I think, a productive exchange. And we look forward to you on our next stage. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.